There is a ritual in the Jewish tradition involving salt and water that most have never learned, and that is directly connected to how prosperity flows or stagnates in your life. Today, I will explain. Listen here with full attention. You can close the other apps. What I am going to teach you now comes from a layer of Kabbalistic tradition that was normally only discussed among masters and their closest students. Not because it was forbidden, but because it requires a level of understanding that most people did not have. Have you ever stopped to think about why, at the Jewish table, before eating bread, we dip the bread in salt? Why does salt appear in almost every covenant ritual in the Torah? Salt is not a seasoning in this context. It is a spiritual instrument. And when you understand what the Kabbalists taught about salt, your relationship with money, abundance, and protection changes forever. Imagine a Jewish immigrant who arrived in Brazil in the early 20th century. He lost everything during the crossing. There was no home, no job, and I didn't speak the language. But in the suitcase I brought, among the tattered clothes and sacred books, there was a small bag of salt. Not for cooking, to protect, to purify, to open the way. Based on true stories of immigrants from that time, salt was treated as one of the most sacred items one could carry. And the reason lies in Kabbalah. Subscribe to the channel now and tell me in the comments, did you know any spiritual tradition involving salt? I want to know what you have heard about it. Today I will reveal to you 3 secrets of salt in the Kabbalistic tradition. First, why salt is called Brit Melach, the covenant of salt, and what that means for your prosperity. Second, the purification ritual with salt and water that protects your financial energy. Third, the weekly practice you can start doing in your home. The first secret. In the Torah, in the book of Leviticus, there is a commandment that says, "Upon every offering you shall place salt. You shall not let the salt covenant of your God be lacking." Every offering, without exception, the salt was as important as the offering itself. The Kabbalists explain why. Salt has a unique spiritual property. It preserves and purifies. The same substance that preserves food also cleans wounds. And in the spiritual dimension, salt acts as a din, a purifying judgment that eliminates the negative energies that accumulate in our field and block the shefa, the abundance. In Kabbalah, there is a balance between 2 forces: chesed, kindness, expansion, and gevura, severity, contraction. Healthy prosperity needs both. Chesed without gevura is wastefulness. Gevura without chesed is greed. Salt represents this perfect balance. It preserves, gevura, while also seasoning and making pleasant, chesed. The second secret lies in water with salt. When the sages taught purification, they used mai meluchim, salty water. Water in Kabbalah represents chesed, kindness, flow, mercy. Salt represents gevura, rigor, limit, protection. When you combine water and salt, you are creating a balance of spiritual forces, and this balance is the channel through which true prosperity flows. The tradition of washing hands with salt water before dealing with business or money was not superstition. It was a spiritual technology. The hands, as I have explained in other videos, are the instruments of action, work, and receiving. When your hands touch the material world, they absorb energies of all kinds. Washing with water and salt cleanses these energies and recalibrates the balance between giving and receiving. A pattern I often observe: people who are constantly bleeding money, paying for unexpected things, losing valuable objects, being robbed, are often living in an imbalance between chesed and gevura. They either give too much indiscriminately or hold back too much out of fear. Or salt helps restore this balance. In my family's history, it is said that my grandfather Eliezer, who arrived around 1928, coming from a small town in Hungary, had a ritual every Friday before Shabbat. He would take a basin of water, dissolve a handful of coarse salt, and wash his hands, saying a specific prayer. Then, with the same water, he would pass it over the doorposts of the house. And he would say, as a parable that remained in the family, "The salt seals the covenant. Whoever seals the covenant with the Eternal seals the protection over their house and their business." The third secret is what the Kabbalists called Melach Brit Olam, the salt of the eternal covenant. In the deepest dimension, salt represents the irreversible commitment between the soul and its mission. Just as salt never loses its properties, it can be diluted, mixed, but it never stops being salt. Its covenant with the divine purpose is indissoluble. When you work with salt consciously, you are reaffirming that covenant. It says, I remember who I am. I remember my mission. I remember that my prosperity is connected to my purpose. Now the practice. I will teach you the weekly salt ritual that you can incorporate into your life. Exercise 1. Hand washing with water and salt. Once a week, preferably on Friday before sunset, which is when Shabbat begins, prepare a basin with warm water and dissolve a tablespoon of coarse salt. Wash your hands slowly, 3 times each hand alternating. While washing, say, May these hands be purified to be instruments of blessing. May all blocking energy be removed. May the salt covenant, Brit Melach, be sealed over my work and my prosperity. Exercise 2. Salt in the corners of the house. Once a month, place a handful of coarse salt in the 4 corners of the main room of your house. Leave it for 24 hours. The Kabbalists taught that chants accumulate stagnant energies called klipot that interfere with the flow of the home. Salt absorbs and neutralizes these energies. After 24 hours, sweep the salt and discard it outside the house. Exercise 3. Salt on bread. When possible, while eating bread, especially at the main meal, sprinkle a little salt on the bread before eating. This is not a diet, it is kavana. While sprinkling, say mentally, I am sealing my covenant with abundance. The salt preserves, the bread nourishes, the eternal provides. Practice these 3 exercises for 40 days. Observe what changes, not only financially, but in terms of clarity, protection, and balance in your life. For those who want to delve deeper into this topic, I have special material on Kabbalistic rituals of purification and protection for the home. It's in the link in the description. I need to warn you, salt is powerful, but it is not magical in the sense that you do it once and life changes on its own. Kabbalah never taught passivity. What salt does is clear the field so that your actions can have full results. But the actions are yours. The effort is yours. The commitment is yours. If you start the practice and notice changes, it could be something subtle, like feeling the house lighter, or something more concrete, like a new clarity about a financial decision. Come back here and share. Your account is important. Let's recap. Salt in the Kabbalistic tradition is not superstition. It is an instrument of covenant, purification, and balance. Brit Melach is the covenant of salt that seals your commitment to the source of abundance. The washing with Mayim Meluchim balances Hesed and Gevura in your hands and in your business. And the salt in the corners of the house cleanses the klipot that stagnate the flow of prosperity. My dear, as my grandfather Eliezer used to say to anyone willing to listen, may the Eternal place His salt upon your life, to preserve what is good, to purify what needs to be cleansed, and to seal upon you a covenant of prosperity that no force can break. May your hands be blessed in work. May your home be protected in your going out and your coming in. May the flow of divine abundance, the Shefa, find in you a clean, balanced vessel ready to receive. Ken Yehi Ratzon, so be it. Amen. Leave a like if this teaching opened your eyes to something new. Subscribe and activate the bell. Share with someone who needs this purification. And let me know in the comments, will you start the salt ritual this week? In the next video, I will reveal a specific psalm that has the power to remove poverty from your life, verse by verse. It's a deep study. Don't miss it. Shalom Aleichem. Peace upon you and your house.